Good morning, Hugo from Relapse Systems, and what I'm going to do today is just step you through enhanced due diligence, or more commonly known as EDD. Enhanced due diligence is only really undertaken in a situation where a property is owned by a company or a trust. And best practice, it should be only undertaken by your MLCO or potentially outsourced. I firmly believe that licensee salespeople should not be doing any form of enhanced due diligence. Why? Because on the right-hand side here, it is more in depth, it is intrinsically more complex and requires specific knowledge. The biggest risk to a business and the licensee salesperson is that we don't come across this very often, which means that we don't have a good, solid working knowledge of the situation or how to deal with it. And sometimes we lack the time and we lack robust technology to be able to step us through the process. So to give us an overview of the most commonly encountered situations where enhanced due diligence is required is in a situation where you've got a company where the directors have an ownership of over 25%. Every one of them must have enhanced due diligence performed on them. And we must be able to establish who is in effective control. In some situations, you get somebody who is acting on behalf of, and that particular individual must definitely be determined and identified. The other side of the coin, if you like, we get trusts, and these are much more complex. You need to know who the settlor is, the beneficiaries, the protector of the trust, who's in effective control, those acting on behalf sometimes, source of funds, and source of wealth. There is no way that a licensee salesperson has got the tools to effectively be able to do this in an educated way to know that it's got a robust outcome unless you've got tools to be able to do it and know very much what you're doing. So that comes back to my recommendation that trust particularly must be done by your MLCO and potentially your companies as well. Moving on, cooperatives, partnerships, etc. are other forms of ownership, but not very often encountered. They could be clubs, cooperative, partnerships, societies. Again, we've got to go through a process to identify the legal status, who's in effective control, the beneficial ownership, where the money flow goes, where it's come from, those acting on behalf, and you need to be able to validate the information. Not just say, oh, well, somebody gave me this bit of paper and I think it looks all right. That is not good enough. You need to be able to validate the information and produce forensic evidence that that process has been completed properly. The attention areas are really quite simple. Knowing your customer is absolutely paramount, knowing the nature and the purpose of the business, and knowing the reasons why they are wanting to sell. That is really, really important. You need to understand this is all just background knowledge, all part of knowing your customer. Knowing the process is also really important. When and what situations do you discuss this with the MLCO? Because you carry the responsibility. So you must get this stuff right. And the other thing you've got to use are digital tools, because when you get audited, if they come along, if the DIA turn up to do an audit, or an independent auditor and sees a pile of paper with no traceable links, then you've got some real problems. But if you use really good recommended digital tools, your problems will be mitigated significantly. So, in summary, here is a situation. If we start on the left-hand side with simple client due diligence, Mr. and Mrs. Smith sitting opposite you at the kitchen table about to sign an agency agreement. You've seen their passport, your driver's license, you've seen proof of address, and you know them, and you can firmly establish that yes, they are bona fide people. That is absolutely fine. However, if Mr. and Mrs. Smith said to you that the property is actually owned by a trust, then that changes completely. This is where you need to do some information gathering and refer it to your MLCO, because it is complex. It is not always straightforward. And if you get it wrong, potentially things are going to go it's going to end badly. That's what I'm getting at. Then if they said to you, oh, our property's in the name of a company, well, that's absolutely fantastic. However, you need to go to the company's office. You need to get the details from the company's office and talk to your MLCO to make sure that you are on the right path. Companies are not as complex as trusts, generally. However, they do vary, and sometimes they're incredibly complicated, so you need to know what you're doing. Partnerships, you need to obtain the details of the person who's in effective control. And again, I would strongly advocate you go straight to your MLCO and say, what do you think of this? And with a little bit more referring, if they look deeper into the data, they might say this is actually too complicated for us. We need to get an electronic ID done on this. That is another option. And I strongly advise that. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy, but it does ensure that you're on the right side of the ledger come to audit time. If the property is owned by a club or a society, and sometimes this happens, again, you need to just get the information that we've just discussed, who's in effective control, get all the documents that you can on the club, refer to your MLCO, and take it from there. So, if you need further education, you can find at these links, Guidelines for Real Estate from the Department of Internal Affairs. They've also got Understanding Beneficial Ownership Structures and Understanding Identification and Verification of Various Clients. Those 3 links I would suggest to you are very, very important and well worth referencing should you have non-verifiable training or just in-house training on a certain subject matter. Then these links are definitely good to refer to. Relapse Systems Limited, we are compliance specialists. We have software specifically designed for due diligence, that's enhanced in client due diligence. We cover all forms of compliance, which include WorkSafe, the Real Estate Agents Authority, that is for supervision, the DIA for anti-money laundering, and the OIO. If there's anything in here that you're not sure about as far as your compliance and where you are at with your current compliance situation, feel free to give us a call. Okay, so it's 021 64 64 50, realapp.nz, and my name is Hugo Sandel, and thank you very much for taking the time out to step through this. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Have a great day. Thank you.